Hello everyone. Tonight I want to look at Millennial Kingdom. We're going to look at a lot of buildings, old world buildings. Today they give them a whole bunch of names like the Greco or styles, or Greco-Roman is the one that I can remember, but they make up a lot of names for these different styles of buildings. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to show you the pictures of these buildings and show you how impossible it is for people in the 1700s, 1800s to build these things. Why? Because they didn't have any electricity, they didn't have cars, anything to do with power tools. They had horses and carts. There were not too many people back then. Also, when you look at the history of these places, they only had a handful of people in some areas, but for some reason there are these huge buildings in those areas. And yes, no real explanation or believable explanation on how those buildings came to be. Mostly the history you will read about them building these places in 1 or 2 years, massive buildings in 1 or 2 years, which is impossible in itself. Even today, they won't be able to do that, but well, they make up the history anyway for these things. And of course, there are so many fire stories with these buildings. Oh, this building burned down, that they rebuilt it, and there's always like a fire story connected to these old buildings. It's almost like a sign that they use it as a sign that this is a fake story for the Freemasons, because that's where the word Freemason really comes from. It means they are free from building anything. They inherited all these buildings from the Millennial Kingdom, and they could decide what they wanted to keep and what they wanted to destroy. They of course did use the fire story as an excuse for destroying, like I think 80 to 90% of these buildings. On some pictures you'll see they destroyed whole cities. And of course I said, oh, the whole city burned down. But when you look at the pictures, you can see it's there's no walls standing anymore. It's all rubble on the ground. They really went into breaking everything down. And of course fires can't do that. Fires can't demolish buildings like that. Up to where one stone is not left on another, almost like the Bible says. You might notice I struggle with English. My language is Afrikaans, so I'm going to try to explain things, but I probably won't be that good at it. There are a bunch of other people on the internet already looking into these buildings. Not all of them believe this is Millennial Kingdom buildings. They think at the moment, some of them think it's Tartarian buildings. Some of them think that there was just a more advanced civilization before us. They didn't make that connection yet with the Millennial Kingdom and reign of Yahushua for 1,000 years. I believe personally all these, or most of these buildings, were built by angels. That Yahuwah allowed angels to help build all these structures, because for me it's humanly impossible to build these things. For instance, this interior of this, what they will call maybe a church, it is impossible for humans to build this. I can't see humans ever building this, not even today. I can't see them being able to make a structure this perfect. Everything lining up perfectly. It is just breathtaking. But I'm going to go through these pictures quickly, and if there's something that I wanted to mention on a picture, I'll quickly mention it and then move on, because there's a lot of pictures. So this is pictures that I believe is from the Millennial Kingdom buildings. You see this structure here. This is the Millennial Kingdom structure, and then you can see next to it right there at the back is your structures they have today, mostly metal and glass. These of course are all bricks and mortar, and what's that other word I wanted to, now I can't remember. Anyway, they are all bricks and mortar. As I said, they are huge, these buildings, and see how small these people look compared to the size of this building. I can't see humans ever being able to do this, especially not in the 17 and 1800s. As I said, some of these places, they would say it takes them 2 years to build this. Yeah, I can't believe that. I watched a video of another guy who's 3 generations of his family's been in the building trade, and he went through all the facts on building structures and proving that it's impossible for them to be able to build these buildings back then. Because he comes from that background, he could name all the different aspects of construction and why it is impossible. But yes, I can't see little humans like these people down here building this structure in a few years. Look at that, that's so beautiful, so stunning. And that's why I believe that angels during the Millennial Kingdom built these places for humans to dwell in. Of course, you'll also see these buildings have doors that are like 3 meters high, the entrances. I've also noticed that you get doors that are 3 meters high, and then you get doors that are 2 meters high, like for us. And for normal people and for taller people like giants or angels, that they can go in and out. I don't know. If it's the Millennial Kingdom, who knows what happened there? Maybe angels were among the people. On some of the images you get of the Millennial Kingdom, like the Byzantine Empire, which is actually pointing to the Millennial Kingdom, and some other pictures of them dancing, you will see angels amongst the people, because some of the beings among the people have wings on their backs, but they look like humans, but they have wings. So it looks like the angels were among the people back in the Millennial Kingdom. But how stunning is this? Wow. Why would they go through so much effort and to make it so beautiful? Even in today's terms, they will try to save money wherever they can, because how expensive it would be to make something this beautiful, and painting the ceilings. And about painting the ceilings, could they erect scaffolds this high to paint this lying on their backs? They mentioned that Michelangelo was painting that ceiling, and when you think about it, Michelangelo, are they actually referring to Michael the angel? That it's maybe referring to angels, like Michael the angel, who painted these ceilings. They just put it in your face, laughing because they know you won't notice it. If they just change it a bit, say Michelangelo, well, maybe it's referring to an angel doing this. You see all this symmetry, perfection. Everything is perfect. Every square is perfect and in line with the other squares, exactly the same size as the other squares. It's just amazing. Like I said, I can't see humans ever accomplishing something like this. So yes, I believe this is all showing the Millennial Kingdom. It's all in our face, it's all around us. They used the world wars to destroy these 90% of these buildings. They used these wars to, like the First and Second World Wars, to destroy a lot of these buildings. And even other wars. You see how big these buildings are in comparison to these surrounding houses. Remember, these houses are double-story houses. And see how small they are compared to these so-called churches. A lot of these churches, I believe, used to be, they're used for healing centers, I believe, and also for creating electricity, free electricity during the Millennial Kingdom. On a lot of them you'll see spires like this, and on these spires there will be little iron, pieces of iron or copper sticking out of them, and I think it drew ether out of the air and converted it into electricity. So I think these so-called church buildings had more than one use. Like this one here, you see all these pieces of iron sticking out here. It's to get etherons in the air, to accumulate it, and then to create using that electricity for the people. I've seen some videos explaining this in more depth, in details, but you'll have to see if you can find videos on that. I can't remember where I've seen that. I know Unexpected Cosmology, he talked about it in one of his videos before, and I think a person called No Place Like Home, her channel, she might have mentioned too about this. But there are others too besides those that talked about these buildings being used to make electricity. And also for healing, because they have those, what do they call that in English? That makes the music, those pipes, the organs. They have those organs. And it's interesting they call it organs, because I think it actually, those frequencies of those pipes healed the organs of the people. It resonated, make the organs resonate to the correct frequency, which means then you are healed. Because everything is about resonance and frequency. And if your organs resonate, or the frequency is correct, then the organ is healthy. So I think those organs were used to heal people. That's why they are in these buildings. But it was also used to create electricity, I think. See how beautiful this is. It's stunning. Perfect. Perfection. Nothing like this can be built today. Look at that. Look how small these people are compared to this building. That's why I believe angels built these, not humans. I don't think it's humanly possible for humans to ever accomplish something like this. If they think it's possible, maybe if you have a few million, try to build a little piece like this. Possible. I don't think it's possible. And the word I was thinking or trying to figure out earlier was granite. They used bricks and a lot of granite with these buildings. And how were they going to cut those granite back in the 17 and 1800s without power tools, with hammers and chisels? How are they going to cut those granite stones? Look at that, perfection. It's perfect, nothing out of place, everything's exactly the size it's supposed to be to make these patterns. Wow, it's so beautiful. I love looking at these old buildings. Such beauty. And even just going over the top, like painting the ceilings. I draw myself. I'm good at what's the word for it? Artist. Also artists. So I love how they went over the top with these buildings. A lot of times they'll paint the ceilings like this, or put little ornaments on the sides, on the pillars, and all over the place, just to make it more beautiful. Again, it's also the size of these places. It's so big. Some of the biggest buildings they destroyed back then. You still have very old photos of them, but yeah, they destroyed them. Look at that ceiling. Wow. I think that all these shapes and so had purpose for acoustics with these organs, for the sound to bounce off all these different angles, and I believe all of it has a purpose. These angles and shapes. We know that water forms different shapes with different frequencies, and I think that's also why these so-called churches have these different shapes in them, incorporated in the building itself. Wow, look at that ceiling. You want to tell me humans in the 1800s made that? I laugh. That's impossible. That's impossible. Here again, all this extra effort gone into making this so beautiful, and so sad that a lot of these buildings they just destroy. So heartless. But of course it's to push to the narrative that the Millennial Kingdom never happened. So that's more important than keeping these beautiful buildings, of course. And that's why they rather destroy them. Some of them, like this one, they kept, and it's so beautiful. As I said, these ceilings, I think angels painted these ceilings. See here, like this one. I believe the angels painted this, not humans. Like Michael the angel. I wanted to show a lot of the inside, like, wow, look at that. so perfect. The insides, because that just make, for me, it's like a nail in a coffin of this idea that humans did it in 1700s and 1800s. This is impossible for them to have done this, to build this. For instance, this. How did they make this? Everything exactly the same size as the next one. It's all perfect. Nothing not lining up. Everything fitting in perfectly. When we make something, we come to the end and oops, it is a few centimeters out here and a few centimeters out there. Not these buildings. Everything is perfect, how it should be. Look at the symmetry. Look at how perfect these corridors are. The gaps between these ribs, it's all the same width, all perfect. How beautiful is that ceiling? See how small these people are compared to the building. These windows also didn't have glass or metal in it, and they put it in to stop whatever the use was of it from being used anymore. I think it also were to send out these frequencies of the organs into the area, into the town, to heal people. Or it might also have been used for the electricity for making electricity and keep providing the towns with electricity. Because you'll see in all these towns, even doesn't matter how small the town is, there used to be one big so-called church like this in every town. It's like it's there to provide electricity for that town, that small town, big town. The bigger the town, you'll have more of these buildings in it. Look at that. Yeah, so that's why I say the Millennial Kingdoms come and gone. That's when they built these places. See, all these people walking here with their carts and horses. See all these buildings. They didn't build it. They inherited these buildings. And in a lot of these stories they say, we founded this place. They even tell you to your face that they found this place. They didn't build it. They found it. They're not lying when they say they found it. And yes, so all these structures were built during the Millennial Kingdom. Again, yeah, you see horse and carts and people with these huge structures around them. Of course, they changed names on them, like this one, Grand Building. They just put some signs on it or scratch out some dates on some of them, because some of these buildings have them, like I-650, for instance, which is in the year of our Messiah, Jesus 650. Or J650, or just the date like 650, and then I'll add a letter in front of it to make it 1650, because I believe what happened is In the Millennial Kingdom, they started counting the years from 1 to 1,000. So the dates would say I 500 or J 500, or in the Roman numerals just 500. And then afterwards, after the Millennial Kingdom, they changed those dates. The I's they turned into ones where they could. They couldn't everywhere, because you get coins and maps and books that still have those I and J and so on them. Yeah, stunning, these buildings. They look out of place with these vehicles, horse and carts. These buildings look out of place. And for instance, this building is an angle downwards, and I can see it, but I'll show you later photos that's more clear. And this one too, that you can see part of this building is underground, or there was like a mud flood or something. That's also a big thing in the community. They noticed mud floods, and that a lot of these buildings are like at least 3 meters under mud. Some of them they dug out as much as they could, but of some of them they just left and made the bottom parts into basements. And also some of these photos you'll see the ground looks muddy, or just look like smoothed out sand, not solid, which when you see that big building and you see just the mud or sand around it, you can't think, how did they build the place? Because how did they get all the bricks and granite and everything there if there weren't any roads? How stunning is that? Wow. I think this is in Hungary. You'll notice, and most of these Millennial Kingdom buildings are in Europe and UK. I believe there's a reason for that. It's because those countries is where Israel were. They fled, or they moved there from after their captivity to Assyria. The 10.5 tribes of Israel, they moved into Northeast Asia and by the Black Sea too, some of them. And from there, some of them, they started calling themselves Tartarians, or Tatarians, or Tatars. And I looked at the word, they say the word means remnant. From there they moved into America. From Northeast Asia they moved through Europe, conquered, moved to America, Australia. But what I wanted to say is that they were the first, I think UK were one of the first places to accept the message of Yahushua, Messiah, when the disciples and apostles preached to them. Even Paul went to the UK and preached there. So that's mentioned in one of the chapters of Acts that was removed from the book of Acts. The last chapter is actually removed from Acts, but you can find it online. Go look it up if you want. It talks there specifically about Paul visiting the UK and preaching to them, and them calling themselves Israelites, those people. Yes, so they accepted, and that's the reason why those places were the epicenter of during the Millennial Kingdom, because they accepted Yahushua's message first. Europe and UK. And like Yahushua said, those that don't accept the message, it will be worse for them than for Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's where you can see across the earth there's a whole lot of buildings that's melted. Places and that's melted. And I believe those are judgments for those people that rejected his message. As he said, will happen. I'm going to do a video on that, because Peter also mentions that. I think in 2 Peter, the renovation by fire. I believe that happened before the start of the Millennial Kingdom. And that judgment came on those places that were evil and didn't want to accept the truth. So how stunning are these buildings. So beautiful. Humans can't even conjure up these in their minds. Never mind building it. They can't even imagine this beauty. Look at that. Wow. So stunning, beautiful. Look at that. It's so sad that so much of these buildings were destroyed, but it's supposed to be that way because we are in the short season of deception. Something so Lucifer had to do to deceive the people. It would be very difficult for him to deceive them if all these buildings were still standing. So they had to destroy most of them and then make up stories for the rest, the remaining. See, these domes, they are made of copper, and it has all to do with electricity and making electricity. They harness the electricity and from the air, from the ether, and they convert it into electricity for the houses. But it was wireless electricity, much like I think fake Nikola Tesla were purporting. He was trying to so-called bring in this wireless electricity back then in the day. I think they just used him to make up a story where electricity came from. Of course, it came from the Millennial Kingdom, and they wanted, of course, people not to even think about that. So they said, oh, Nikola Tesla, he created AC current, alternating current, and Edison, I think he said, or they say he did, DC current, direct current. So they have faces and names behind all these inventions, so-called people that invented this stuff. But I think it's all been invented during the Millennial Kingdom, and they just went on using it after the Millennial Kingdom. A lot of it, of course, they also destroyed and hid. Of course, they didn't use petrol, they used steam, and mostly steam, and also these wireless electricity to have light and use it for all other purposes. Everybody had free electricity, they didn't have to pay for it, of course. See how big this building is. How long will it take humans to build this? Yeah, you can see this mud flood idea that I was talking about. This building is not level anymore. Part of it is above ground and part of it's below ground, as if the mudslide went down here, and they didn't bother digging out these buildings. I can believe why not, because they didn't have today to clean up around there, to use spades to dig out some of these places. You have photos where it shows people digging out these buildings. Now the mud flood idea, I think, happened with the release of Lucifer again. There was an event, I think, a lot of earthquakes that could have caused liquefaction of some of these buildings, sink into the ground. and even a rise of water levels all across the earth, not like the flood of Noah, much smaller scale, but it caused mud to form around all these buildings worldwide. And I don't know how they accomplished that. We'll probably never know, but they did. And I believe that's happened maybe when Yahushua and the saints left Earth again after the 1,000 years, or when Satan was released, or maybe both together. You get a lot of these hanging Tower of Pisa. There is actually more than that, just that one. I've also seen other buildings leaning to the side. That happens with liquefaction, that the buildings sink in on the one side and they lean to a side, especially with towers you can see that. And yeah, so there were definitely earthquakes too, not just maybe the water levels rising. Yes. You see what I was talking about? See, you don't see streets, you don't see, it looks like just gravel all over the place here. How did they, and this looks quite wet on this side, how did they build these places with this type of ground around? There's no solid ground to build on. And as I go to work, I walk between these buildings, and I always just look in amazement at these buildings. They're so stunning and so big. Yeah, they're very big. It's like a building on top of a building on top of a building. Some of them is like never ending. And I always think to myself, it's impossible for people to build this stuff, these places. See, like these horse and carts, and you want to tell me these people, the few that there is, built these stunning places without power tools. How did they cut the granite? How stunning is that? Well, at least they did keep some of it. See, the ground here seems like it's been leveled here with the lines on it. Scraped level after the mud flood. Wow. How big's that? Wow, that's big. See how small these cars looks, buses, your truck. How small it looks compared to this building. And you'll notice these buildings, the older buildings looks more like the Greco-Roman style, I think. Then you get these newer, like these types of buildings. They look a bit more modern than that Greco-Roman style buildings. I believe they were built more to the end of the 1,000-year reign. In the beginning of the 1,000-year reign, it's more those buildings that look like the Roman style buildings. Yes, even this building in the very well-known building, I believe it's a Millennial Kingdom building. Look how small these cars are compared to this building. Another big thing with these buildings, how stunning is this? How perfect! Everything fits in perfectly. With these buildings, a funny thing is that none of them had toilets. These big buildings. So stunning, and all so much effort went into it, but they forgot to put in toilets. The reason for this is, of course, the Bible in Revelation. I think it is Revelation 3. It mentions that they will eat manna from heaven during the Millennial Kingdom. And let's see if I can find it. Let's use this one. Oh yeah, I can't click there, can I? I don't think I'll be able to find it. Let's see. If anything comes up, it is in Revelation, so we can go straight there. Here, Revelation 2 verse 17. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. To everyone who is victorious, I will give him some of the manna that has been hidden away in heaven. You see, the victorious ones were the ones who ruled with Yahushua during the Millennial Kingdom, and he gave them manna to eat during the Millennial Kingdom. Well, maybe that's something you didn't know. But yes, that's what happened. They ate manna, and there's other texts, extra biblical texts, that mentions that manna, if you eat manna, you don't have to use a toilet. That it absorbs 100% into your body, that you don't need a toilet. How amazing is that? And that's, I believe, why these stunning buildings doesn't have toilets, or didn't have toilets. They now put in toilets after the 1,000-year reign. I think that's the reason. The Bible says they're going to eat manna. And the other text says that it absorbs into your body, you don't need to use a toilet. Another proof, I believe, that these are Millennial Kingdom buildings. This building, with these events, after these events, they destroyed most of these places. They just showed the people all these buildings, and then a month or so after showing the people, they destroyed about 99% of these buildings. I can't remember what they call these events. No, I can't remember. You see, with this, the road, it looks like it was muddy, and it was smoothed out. This, of course, funny story how this supposedly got destroyed. This is called Crystal Palace in London. It was the biggest glass building in the world. As you can see, it is massive. It's made 100% of metal and glass. The whole building. The story they go with? Oh, it was destroyed with fire. When did you see fire destroying glass and metal? I've never seen that in my life. A bunch of liars. Fire can't destroy a building like this. It's impossible. Now, all the stories goes the fire route. No, it's fire. Well, it's fire. See how big that is. It's stunning, eh? There were fully grown trees inside this building. There's afterwards the magic fire destroyed this. Yeah, alright, if they say so. Magic fire bending metal and destroying the glass. Like I said, I think like these shapes is like a shape of some of magnets you get these days. I think all this stuff had other purposes too back in the day, all to do with electricity. You see these on top here, you get these things that can draw ether and convert it, I believe, to electricity. These pictures that shows that these buildings had lights all over. before they destroyed them. At night they were shining. These buildings illuminated at night. Yeah, I think I showed this one before. These are the organs I was talking about. Stunning organs. That's there, I believe, for healing. They used it for healing the people. This image is, of course, of Lucifer being bound for 1,000 years. You can see what am I doing here? They see there's a chain, the apple that's bitten, referring to Genesis, and where he tempted Eve, supposedly with an apple, but of course it refers to sex. The forbidden fruit is sex. That's why her punishment will reflect the sin. Her punishment was pain in childbirth. And you can see his rulership being destroyed as staff. I think this shows that it's been broken, so he lost his control over the earth for that 1,000 years. And yes, that's also some of the places they destroyed after this. After they showed the people these places for a few weeks or so, they destroyed everything. Look how big this is. It stands out because there's nothing around it. It's like an eyesore almost. It's just this one huge building in the middle of nothing, of nowhere. By the sea, by the coast it seems, because there's ships at the back. See, these Greco-Roman type, I think they were the first type of buildings during the Millennial Kingdom. Like, yeah, this building has nothing around it. Where's everything else? And here you've had only a few people standing around here, minding their own business. And it's funny with these pictures also, you get most of the people always look at the camera when the photo's taken. Like they're being extras there for the photo shoot. They're not actually going doing something, they're just standing and looking at the camera. This building, even this building, I feel you can see it's partly underground. It looks like it must be a little taller than it is. Big buildings. See, this building, you can also see it looks like it's leaning a bit. Oh, it's massive. Look at these houses, these double-story houses. Nothing compared to this building. Nothing. It's impossible for humans to build something like this. Well, they can try today if they want. They have the equipment today to cut all this stuff and granite and so on and try it. But I bet you they won't be able to. Look at that. Like I said, these spires, you see the points on the top here for the electricity. Crystal Palace. And that's why I say these are like power stations. You could say the Millennial Kingdom's power stations. Look how small these people are compared to this. Yeah, and it's funny, on some of these places they're like on the sides of mountains. It's even more impossible to build. And here you can see you see this building was actually much higher than we have today. And when they started digging out, they found that it's like, this is more than 3 meters, of course. Some places it's much more than 3 meters, but where I walk in London, mostly it's like around 6. It's about 3 meters deep. You see doors and windows below ground level, which is funny to see. See the intricate details they put into this. Supposedly in the 17 and 1800s. Why go through that much effort? It's almost like there's no need for it, no need for trying to make it so beautiful. But it's because I believe they do it for Yahushua, because he's the ruler. They want to make it as beautiful as possible in his kingdom. Look at that. How are they going to make it? Even today they can't make this. How did they do it back then in the 1700s, 1800s? These large horses. Donkeys, actually, sorry. Donkeys. There's a lot of old photos. You see it's huge fruit and lettuce heads and animals. Large animals like this. Look at this. How big this one is. Look at that. Stunning, eh? And this is all that's left of this place. They destroyed the rest of it, I think. This looks like the entrance to a very nice building. I don't know why they decided to keep this part of it. Look at that. Wow. Structure, that's the only thing they kept of this whole town, basically, of the Millennial Kingdom buildings. They just kept this little dome thingy. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of photos. Here it shows different countries having the same type of structures, styles of buildings. Look at that. Wow, that's stunning. Look how big that is. Look at this. In the middle of nowhere, there's just this huge house, or castle, or whatever you want to call it, in the middle of nowhere. Why? Why would it be there? Why goes out of your way? Back in those days, people built shacks to live in, but hey, there's these huge granite buildings all over the place. Look at that. Look at that. That's stunning, eh? Wow. Futuristic building. Anyways, Tartaria is also another idea that in the beginning of the rabbit hole, people come to this idea of Tartaria, that they built these, that they were like a previous civilization that built these, but it's not the case. Tartaria it was partly of Israel tribes, or maybe all of Israel. The 10.5 tribes, like I mentioned, became like the Tyrians, calling themselves that, which means remnant, and they moved across the earth from Northeast Asia. As 2 Esdras 13 says, they moved to Arzareth after their captivity. You can go read 2 Esdras 13. It talks about where they went to, and you'll find a place on old maps in Northeast Asia that is also called Tartaria. Maybe that's also the reason they're trying to hide it, because it is Israel. They don't want people to know that history. They want you to believe their history, their version of history. These type of buildings, it's funny because in a lot of countries you get more or less the same type of buildings, which for me points out that it was one kingdom worldwide. You see, this is another country. I think this is South Africa. And yes, South Africa. And it looks similar to buildings in Hungary and America. Why? Look at that detail. Why go out of your way like this to make this beautiful building so beautiful? Put in all this for what? I can see why they wanted to keep this one. These little dragons on them. Of course, during the Renaissance, a lot of these, I believe, these structures, they started putting in after the Millennial Kingdom in defiance of Yahushua, because the evil people remained behind. So they also had the technology that they had during the Millennial Kingdom, so they started making things they wanted to make. And of course, I think a lot of these buildings, they started to put in and on them images of people and animals to make it look the way they wanted it to look afterwards. Like that staircase, nothing really supporting it. Look at that, for instance, these little people. This, of course, was destroyed afterwards, but they wanted to show the people these places first, and then they destroyed it. What a shame. Look at that. Wow, so beautiful. Even that chandelier area, it's so stunning. As you can see, this is America. All this is gone now. They destroyed it. How long has this video been? I need to check. Come on. Hour. So yeah, I need to finish.